Today we are going to look at Hasta Nakshatra. Hasta occupies the middle degrees of Virgo and is the 13th nakshatra in the Vedic Zodiac. Hasta is not a nakshatra of leadership or headline grabbing achievement. The classical texts are explicit about this. It is associated with daily repetitive work and achievement rather than leadership. It is the nakshatra of the artisan, the craftsperson, the skilled practitioner who does the work with the hands day after day with precision and persistence. The hand that does the work rarely receives the recognition that the face gets. And as we will see in the examples today, that pattern shows up consistently. Hasta produces people of genuine skill and accomplishment who are often less famous than their achievements deserve. Hasta has three core themes: skill, craftsmanship, and the work of the hands, intelligence, counseling, and illumination, and wit, comedy, and entertainment. All three flow from its symbol and its presiding deity. Hasta symbol is a hand, usually depicted with the fingers closed as if grasping something or forming a fist. That image carries several layers of meaning simultaneously. The open and skilled hand suggests craftsmanship, dexterity, and the capacity to create through precise, practiced movement. It is the hand of the artisan, the surgeon, the musician, the stage magician. It governs all skilled activities that require the hand, and by extension, palmistry and jyotish, since the hand that reads other hands is also Hasta's domain. The closed fist suggests something quite different. It indicates determination, grasping, and a tendency to wish to control through any means, honorable or dishonorable. The same hand that creates can also steal. The same skill that heals can also manipulate. This dual nature gives Hasta a potential for a questionable moral orientation and what the texts call a pliable conscience. Thieves, pickpockets, and rascals fall under this nakshatra alongside artisans and craftspeople, and the skill involved is often the same, pointed in a different direction. The presiding deity is Savitri or Surya, the sun. The sun spreads light in all directions, and from this, Hasta derives its illuminating intelligence, particularly as it applies to counseling and advising. The sun's light helps others see clearly, and Hasta natives often have that quality, the ability to illuminate a situation for someone who is in the dark about it. One of Hasta's more surprising traditional associations is with jesting, merriment, laughter, and ridicule. This is not immediately obvious from the symbol or the deity, but it is a consistent classical attribution. When the ascendant or moon falls in Hasta, the native is often clever, witty, and entertaining, though also somewhat flighty and not particularly dependable. The hand that juggles is also the hand that drops things. The three themes worth understanding in Hasta are as follows. The first is skill, craftsmanship, and the work of the hands. Hasta governs all skilled activities that involve the hands. Artisans, handcrafters, stage magicians, and palmists. It enhances industry, enterprise, invention, and subtle thought in the service of practical, hands on work. The key quality here is not brilliance or leadership, but sustained, repetitive precision, the kind of skill that develops through thousands of hours of practice rather than sudden inspiration. Hasta produces the craftsperson who does the same thing every day and does it better each time. The second theme is intelligence, counseling, and illumination. The sun's light gives Hasta a quality of clarity and insight that is particularly well suited to advising others. Ministers, advisors, counselors, educators, authors, and priests all fall under this nakshatra. The Hasta native who expresses this theme well is someone who can take a complex situation and illuminate it, who can see clearly and help others see what they could not see before. The third theme is wit, comedy, and entertainment. Comedians, pranksters, jesters, and mime artists are all specifically mentioned in the classical sources. This connects to the hand's expressive quality, the gesture, the sleight of hand, the physical comedy that operates through the body. Hasta's wit is often clever and sharp rather than broad and may carry a quality of ridicule alongside genuine humor. The shadow side is worth naming directly. The closed fist of Hasta's symbol indicates a grasping nature and a tendency to control through any means. The pliable conscience means that ethical boundaries may shift depending on circumstances. Thieves, rascals, and rogues are specifically listed in the classical sources alongside the artisans and advisors. The skill is real. The question is always what it is being used for. Before we look at the ascendance examples, it is worth pausing on something that the example list itself illustrates. When you look at the full list of people with Hasta rising, you find fewer household names than you would expect for a nakshatra with such accomplished natives. It is not a coincidence. It is Hasta. This is the nakshatra of the skilled practitioner rather than the prominent leader. And even genuinely exceptional Hasta natives tend to be less famous than the achievements deserve. The hand does the work, the face gets the credit. With that in mind, let us look at three examples who embody Hasta's themes with precision. The first is Frank Boorman, who had Hasta rising, and he's a clear illustration of the skill and precision theme applied at the most demanding level imaginable. He commanded Apollo 8 in December of 1968, the first crewed mission to leave Earth's orbit and travel to the moon. That mission required an extraordinary level of hand skill and technical precision from every crew member, operating in conditions where the margin for error was essentially zero. Borman was also the kind of commander who enabled rather than dominated, a steady, technically precise presence whose role was to ensure that the mission succeeded, not to become a symbol. He is considerably less famous than Neil Armstrong, despite having gone to the moon first. That gap between achievement and recognition is very characteristic of Hasta, the hand that does the work quietly and precisely without the headline. Thomas Schelling had Hasta rising, and he represents the counseling and illuminating intelligence theme at its most consequential. He was an economist and strategist who won the Nobel Prize in Economics in 2005 for his work on game theory and conflict analysis. More specifically, he was one of the principal architects of nuclear deterrence theory, the framework of ideas that shaped how the world's major powers thought about and avoided nuclear conflict during the Cold War. That is counseling and advising at the most consequential possible scale, illuminating a situation so dangerous and complex that the wrong analysis could have ended civilization. And yet, Schelling is virtually unknown outside academic and policy circles. The advisor behind the throne doing work of historic importance, while the leaders who implemented his thinking received the public recognition. That is Huster's counseling theme expressed precisely. The last example on the ascendant list is that of Claudette Colbert, and she represents the wit, comedy, and entertainment theme with considerable distinction. She was one of the great comic actresses of Hollywood's golden age. Her timing was impeccable, her physical comedy precise, and her ability to hold an audience through sheer charm and intelligence was remarkable. Her performance in It Happened One Night won her the Academy Award for Best Actress in 1935 and is still studied for the precision of its comic craft. She also had the quality of clever, entertaining flightlessness that the classical texts specifically associate with Hasta Ascendant. She was known for being charming, witty, and somewhat unpredictable in her professional relationships. She is considerably well less celebrated today than contemporaries like Catherine Hepburn, despite being their equal in craft. Again, the skilled hand less famous than it deserves to be. The moon in Hasta shapes the inner emotional nature, the drives, the instincts, and the way the person relates to the work and the world from within. Here, Hasta's themes show up in what the person is drawn toward and how they engage with it at the deepest level. Our first example is that of Antoni Gaudi, who had his moon in Hasta, and he is perhaps the most complete expression of this nakshatra's craftsmanship theme in the history of architecture. His work, particularly the Sagrada Familia in Barcelona, is built on a foundation of extraordinary, sustained, daily skilled labor. He devoted the last 43 years of his life to the Sagrada Familia, knowing with complete certainty that he would never see it completed. He worked on it every day with the precision and devotion of a craftsperson who understands that the work itself is the point, not the recognition or the completion. That quality of sustained repetitive daily skill engagement, making something more precise and more beautiful each day, is the purest expression of Hasta's craftsmanship theme that exists in the modern record. He also became so absorbed in his work that he lived in almost complete simplicity, eating little and devoting himself entirely to the task on hand. That meditative quality of the craftsperson, completely absorbed in their craft, is deeply characteristic of Hastamo. Next, we look at Swami Vivekananda with his moon in Hasta, and he represents the illuminating intelligence and counseling theme in its most spiritually significant form. His address to the Parliament of the World's Religion in Chicago in 1893, which opened with the words, Sisters and Brothers of America, and received a standing ovation, is one of the most celebrated acts of spiritual illumination in modern history. He took the light of Vedantic philosophy and made it visible to a Western audience that had never encountered it in that form. That is the sun's illuminating quality operating through Hasta's counseling and advising function, helping others see what they could not see before with clarity and warmth. Vivekananda also had a quality of wit and direct communication that connects to Hasta's entertainment and jesting dimension. He was known for his humor and his capacity to make profound ideas immediately accessible and enjoyable. Walt Disney is a final example with his Moon in Hasta, and he connects to both the craftsmanship and the entertainment themes simultaneously. He began as an animator, one of the most skilled and painstaking hand based crafts in the history of art. Early animation required thousands of hand drawn frames produced with extraordinary precision and repetitive skill. That is Hasta's daily repetitive work in its most literal form. Disney also built his empire on wit, entertainment, and the capacity to delight audiences. The jesting and merriment theme of Hasta expressed through one of the most influential entertainment companies in history. What is less often remembered is that before the empire, there was the craftsperson, a young animator sitting at a drawing table, producing frame after frame with his hands, developing a skill that would eventually change the world of entertainment. The hand came first, the recognition came later. The careers associated with Hasta fall into three clear groups. First, those skilled with their hands, like artisans, handcrafters, pickpockets, and stage magicians. Second, those who advise, counsel, and illuminate, like advisors, ministers, authors, counselors, educators, and priests. Third, those attracted to comedy and entertainment, like comedians, pranksters, jesters, and mime artists. What is notably absent from this list is any reference to heads of states, generals, or prominent leaders. Hasta governs the skilled practitioner, the advisor behind the throne, the craftsperson in the workshop. It is the nakshatra of those who enable and support rather than those who lead and command. That quality of skilled, somewhat invisible contribution is part of Hasta's character. And as we will see in the examples, it shows up consistently even in the lives of genuinely accomplished people. To summarize what we have covered today, Hasta is the 13th nakshatra, occupying the middle degrees of Virgo. Its symbol is a hand, open in skill, closed in determination. Its deity is Savitri, the sun, whose light illuminates and clarifies. Its three core themes are skill, craftsmanship, and the work of the hands, intelligence, counseling, and illumination, and wit, comedy, and entertainment. What the examples today show, and what the example list itself illustrates, is that Hasta produces people of genuine accomplishment who are often less famous than the work deserves. Borman went to the moon before Armstrong and is a fraction as well known. Shelling helped prevent nuclear war and is known only to specialists. Colbert was the equal of Hollywood's greatest comic actresses and is less remembered than most of them. Gaudi devoted 43 years to a building he knew he would never see finished. Vivekananda illuminated an entire civilization's philosophy for a world that had never heard it. Disney began as an animator, frame by frame, hand by hand. That is Hasta. The skilled hand does the work. It does not always get the credit. And in the Hasta tradition, That is precisely as it should be. The work is the point, not the recognition.